Hey everybody, it's Tyler Esselman.
And it's Michael Osinski.
And it's Ashlyn Lozano, and we are here with a very, very special 100th episode of This One Goes to 11, an extravaganza.
Woo!
Yeah? And then it goes... Brr. Did someone write that?
What?
What is that? Did someone write that?
Someone write
Your
what?
Your theme music.
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah.
theme music?
Yeah.
That's Damian Figueres, friend of the pod.
Oh, Damien.
Damien.
Sweet. I don't remember. He brought an album, but I don't remember what.
He did.
He
Tapestry.
did. Tapestry.
Oh, Carol.
Maybe you've heard of it.
Thank you,
I've never
Carol.
heard of that little
Well, what's up, everyone? So, do you want to explain why I'm talking more?
Sure.
Then
we could do that. That'd be a great way
and
of
then
doing
and
this.
then I'll kind of take it.
Yeah. Well, we decided that to mark our 100th episode, our 100th official episode. We know that there's technically more than 100 instances of us doing this sort of thing out there online.
Crazy.
But this is the 100th proper episode, and so we decided we wanted to have somebody. Wanted to have somebody who we trusted, somebody whose voice and taste we could vouch for, come in and help us mark that occasion. And I was saying, Michael, we didn't have any other choices besides Ashlyn. Ashlyn was our only choice.
Is that because you thought no one else would be willing to do it? Like what?
No.
Tell me more about that.
No. But you are probably the one guest we've had. We are the one guest. You are the one guest on the podcast who has potentially like thrown the podcast off the rails the most, and so we thought we would appreciate that like that energy for our 100th episode.
Because I'm so verbose.
No, it was more about it was more the move fast and break stuff kind of thing. That was your strat.
I did listen back to that, and I don't want to rehash it, but I was mortified by my own episode, as you know, because I've been texting you about it.
Well, it was Third Eye Blind. It was a strong choice.
Yeah, not about the choice, just about the behavior. Because I clearly thought that you edit more than you do, or like did at the time.
He did.
So
We took off. There were like 30 minutes off your episode. Like that's the most we've ever cut from an episode. We did edit it, Ashlyn.
Okay, here's why I say that. Not because it was. Because I clearly, listening to it, I clearly thought I had struck gold with the phrase "die on the hill," and I said it like
we all do this.
5 or 6 times.
We all do this
because I thought, okay, Michael's gonna edit, so I need to just make sure that this phrase makes it into the episode.
Oh, it did.
It did several times.
It sure did.
Too many times. Anyway, thank you. So it's sincerely an honor to be asked, even with all the baggage that comes with it. I love you guys so much, and it's so cool that you have done this at least 100 times. Yeah. So I'm plugging in as a DJ Lozano bitch. If you know, you know. If you know, you know.
You do know.
And I just want to kind of start with.
Yeah, we're gonna take a walk down memory lane. Is that how that's kind of how this feels? So there's a little bit of.
Do you want to outline what's happening today, or no?
Yeah, so I think Ashlyn's gonna guide us through a little bit of reflection on our first 100 episodes, and kind of give you all. We decided this could allow us to share maybe some of the more finer points about us getting this thing started up. Not like we're authorities on it or anything like that, but taking a little walk down memory lane and kind of stating what we hope to do with this in the future. So it will be a little bit of everything, a little bit of retrospective and a little bit of looking to the future too. Is that right, Michael?
Yeah, and because it's still an episode, there'll probably a 2-parter because we love ourselves, I guess. But it is an episode, so we also do have to nominate an album.
Yes, which we will.
At some point, we'll nominate. Tyler and I are going to nominate an album together to join the pantheon. But that's further down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no spoilies, but Easter eggs, perhaps. Maybe there was an Easter egg just there that I laid. No.
Did you lay that egg?
Did I lay an egg? You don't know what I'm talking about?
That's a personal question, I think.
Okay, so speaking of personal questions, before we get into it, I have a question, just like an off the dome kind of question for you. So first response, best response. Can you name another thing, first response, that you've also done 100 times? It can be
just
boring.
100 times?
I think that's up to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the if we're talking about like creative endeavors, certainly this is the thing that has been the most long-standing in terms of like it has. When you do something at least 100 times, it does put it into that echelon of like everyday activity, right? This has sort of become.
This is old hat now. Is that what you're saying?
Or it's become part of my ADL, my activities of daily living, as those in the medical field might say.
Oh.
You know, and so it is weirdly integrated into my life. I don't know if it feels that way to you too, Michael.
Yeah, I can't think of anything. I mean, because even though, I've directed, but I've never acted professionally. But even if I had, like, all the shows I've directed have never run for 100 performances. So I can't even think of something that I've specifically done this exact same thing just 100 times or, like, close to 100 times. So, yeah, I had never thought of that. Huh.
Wow.
Longevity.
I mean, I was thinking you would say, like, brushing your teeth.
Well,
obviously you've done that more than 100
more
times.
Than 100. I can think of something
of
else inappropriate for this podcast that
I
I've
know.
done more than 100 times. But
I said first thought, best thought.
Well,
yeah. Well, as someone who does act professionally, at least sometimes, I cannot imagine doing a show 100 times. That sounds
I know, right?
awful.
Have you, and in the recent shows that this is also an opportunity for us to sing praises of our friend Ashlyn too. Never going to pass up an opportunity to do that. But with the kind of shows that you've been doing recently, have those have been eight performances a week, or how many performances have you been? No.
4. It's typically 4. In like Chicago storefronts, typically 4 or sometimes 5 if they throw an industry night at you. But who cares about theater?
We do. We do still. If anything, that's like a crazy byproduct of this podcast is how it has reinvigorated a little bit of my just talking about theater as much as we have.
Really?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know if you would say that too, Michael, but it's much more been a part of your work. So it probably lives a little bit differently for you.
I'm on a different sort of theater journey right now, but that's for another podcast.
Yeah. So I want to know, I kind of interrupted you there, but how did this podcast start? Why did it start? And I kind of have a follow-up that I'm going to lump in there too, which you can take or leave, putting my Howard Stern hat on. Do you feel like you do it for you, or do you do it for the listener? And there you go. There's 3 questions.
I mean, technically, if I'm thinking about the very origins of the podcast, they go back to when I was studying in London in 2000 with our former guest, Derek Loafman, who was my roommate in our flat together in London. And we were talking about the idea of a 5-star album being an album that, like, just so good that you can, back when you put CDs in Discman, like, it was, you just put the CD in, you wouldn't have to press any buttons, you could just play all the way through and not to skip anything. It was just like solid album all the way through. Fast forward quite a few years to something that, Ashlyn, you were a part of, when we did a little workshop on a piece that I wasn't sure what exactly the piece was going to be. I just knew that I wanted to create something that made audiences feel the way that music makes me feel. And it turned into this workshop with all of us sort of bringing in our favorite artists and our favorite songs and trying to recreate that experience and playing games around that. Like, it's just sort of, I don't know. I remember, I think I did I sing? I sang
Did
a
we
Stone
sing?
Temple.
Was it
Yeah, we
karaoke?
sang as
Yeah.
part of it. I think I
we did.
sang Vaseline. I think Tyler sang No One Knows.
No one
Yep.
knows, yeah.
And Ashlyn, I believe you pulled out your Dolores O'Riordan.
Yeah,
You
I
did.
did Zombie. Wasn't
And
Wes?
so
Wes was there
Wes
too.
was there.
Did
What did Wes do?
a Metallica song? I can't remember which one.
Was it Nothing
But-
Else Matters?
No, it was something.
No, it was something on a road. Something about a road.
Yeah. Oh, something may roam. So we may roam. Or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wherever you may
Wherever
roam.
you may
Yeah.
roam.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good song.
So we did that, but then pandemic hit, and
when was that?
Weren't we calling that the Modern
would you say
Rock
when
Project?
was that? The pandemic? I thought you were asking.
No. The workshop.
In my mind, I always call it the Modern Rock Project. That was what it was?
I
The
think
shorthand
that's what we
was,
called
right?
it. Yeah.
Yeah. That had to have been. We were all done with DTS by that point, right?
I'm thinking
Yeah.
2018. This was pre. This might have been pre Book of Sebastian.
I remember
might
it
have
was
been that
winter,
winter
and I was a
before
little
that.
bit sad. So yeah, probably
2018 sounds right.
20. Yeah.
I bet you it's that.
But I met Eric in 20. Yeah, I guess if it was early.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I believe
then
it was.
pandemic hit, and I guess, Tyler, you can take it from here. This is when I reached out to you specifically.
So what you're saying is this is a pre 9/11 concept in a post 9/11 world. Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Thank you for framing it that way.
We're clipping that. And it's going to zoom in on your face and go, a pre 9/11 concept in a post 9/11
In a post
world.
9/11 world, and just do the big graphic. Sorry,
I can see the editing now. But it's from there. Michael reached out in 2021, early to mid 2021. I feel like, and asked if, because you and I had been talking about this concept before of perfectionism and the idea and pedagogical interest that can kind of come from it, and then we kicked it off in December of 2021. Did a beta episode that we've made mention of many times. That was with a friend of the pod, Meg Williams, and it was we pretty much just let it rip. That was kind of how it felt, is that it all came together really quick, and that's mostly a credit to you, Michael. Ashlyn, you having done anything with Michael ever, it's just like a dream to be your teammate, just because your administrative skills are really second to none.
There's
Michael.
a Google Doc.
There's a Google Doc.
There's a vision, there's a Google Doc, and then it's all done somehow. With this invisible labor that is not invisible, but
it's just Michael doing it.
Yeah, it's just Michael doing labor and me not paying attention. I'm just kidding.
We love you.
We love you so much. Yeah.
But that last question that I'm thinking about, now, who's it for?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
that's a good question.
It depends on the episode, because I mean, when I was re-listening to some of our old episodes in preparation for this, and I will say that I enjoy the episodes where I just get to talk to people I haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, today I was catching up with the episode we did with Annie DeMario about Rufus Wainwright's Want One, and I was just remembering how good it is to have conversations with people who knew me in those formative years.
Yeah.
Because you reach my age, and you just unless you are living in the same place.
And what is your age?
What's your
I'm
age?
in my 40s. Come on. But when you reach that age, if you don't have kids and your friends are not in the same space as you, you just don't stay in touch with them at all, and you certainly don't talk about those years when you were forming your identity. And so, I mean,
right.
Those episodes, strictly for me, and if other people enjoy them, great. But I also do try and think of our seasons and the way we format the episode with the listener in mind. I've been, as Tyler can attest to, I tried desperately to keep these episodes. This one is going to be different, but keep episodes under an hour.
Right.
They are under an hour.
Which we're doing now. It took us a long time to get there.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason probably why taking it back to what you were saying about your episode, Ashlyn, and how long it was, is we really didn't know how to edit things all that well at that time, at least. Genuinely, Michael sent me a Google, he sent me a video
Google
of how
Doc.
he was doing it. It was a Google Doc, but it was also you had recorded videos and stuff like that. And at that time, cutting, just the way that we formatted things wasn't helping us. So getting, in terms of my answer to that question of whether it's for us or whether it's for anybody else at this point, I think I'm asking myself that all the time about why is this thing worth doing? I mean, we don't need another music podcast, is the truth. And
I've never listened to one until now.
Yeah. Well,
So,
this is the
I
thing
did.
is, I think that's what we're hoping, is that this is this great democratic tool that we have, right, of podcasting. And I would extrapolate it if I was going to get up my own ass about this, but to radio, right? It's this very democratic thing that we can. It's cheap to do.
Yeah.
And you can open up a space for somebody who may not have the opportunity to talk about themselves all the time to do that. And it seemed pretty cool for some people to have that experience. I'm not saying it was a life-changing thing or anything like that, but it's nice. It's nice to let people talk about themselves a little bit sometimes. I enjoy that.
So you gave me a list of sort of your top 5 for whatever reasons. I don't know if you want to talk about those, but I am just going to interject and say I've been listening to them, and the final 2 I got were Lucy Blehar's AM.
Yes.
And Paul Esselman. And I listened to it this morning, and
Yeah.
because I had listened to it a long time ago, but it's really nice. Like it's lovely to listen to, and it helps that I knew the album and I loved the music that you were talking about, and like you're talking about the music, but you're not talking about the music as well. Sometimes, you're talking about where the music came from for that person, or sort of kind of whatever they want to say about it. And so it's just like a moment of connection that I think is just a lovely
Yeah.
addition to the dumpster fire that we're living in.
I'm glad it feels that way.
Yeah.
Because there's times when, just by the way that we record, and there's kind of like scattershot all over the place. We do them in little spurts sometimes, and having a minute to actually kind of stop and just talk about something for the sake of doing it for like 90 minutes on a Thursday night is kind of nice sometimes. It's interesting how medicinal it can be.
The one with Paul, with Mr. Esselman.
Papa. Yes.
It made me think, it's felt like a time capsule. Like you're going to move through life and you're always going to have that recording of you talking to your dad about the Foo Fighters and like remembering that concert that you went to. And like, that's a wonderful, you're also unfortunately going to have the one of talking to me about Third Eye Blind. But like, that's such a beautiful time capsule. And it made me think like, God, I would love to commission you to just talk to my grandfather about music so I can have that.
Listen.
You don't have to put it anywhere. Just I'll purchase it. Like I just want to hear it.
Yeah.
Because and I think in this episode too, you're talking, and then I'll stop and we'll keep moving. But you're talking about Taylor Hawkins, and you're talking about mortality, and you're talking about death in this episode that's very top of mind for me. Mm-hmm. And you just slowed down for a second, to talk to your dad about an album, and that was very cool. And Michael.
Yeah. Michael's great. That's the gift, is that sometimes it's,
and your close friend Michael. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes Michael gets to have this view into my life, and sometimes I get to have this view into Michael's life. And I dig that. Like when it's the Mike guests.
Yeah.
Any of the ones that call you Mike. Shout out to all the Mike guests, because that's you're a special
you Mike?
bunch.
I don't think I've picked up on that.
Have you not? Oh my God! Yeah,
I don't think so.
Tyler can tell. Like, if it's someone that I brought on the podcast, he can tell when they knew me based on whether they call me Mike or Michael.
Yeah.
Because before grad school, everyone called me Mike. And then the first day of grad school, Lisa Portes made me choose, like, what, because she was like, what do you want to be called? And I'm like, Mike or Michael doesn't matter. And she was like, no, it does matter. And I'm like, okay, then I guess I'm going to go with Michael.
Yeah.
And so I've just referred to myself as Michael from here on out, but people who knew me beforehand, I'm like, just call me Mike. Like I don't care. The only thing I do not like being called is Mikey. So
less than ideal.
I do know and love a Mikey, but he is a Mikey and you are not a Mikey.
You're not a Mikey.
No.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. That's absolutely true.
I don't get the Mike either, but came later in life, so
we were of
that's
that
my
era.
loss. Yeah.
I was
Our
also
collective loss.
I did have a college nickname too. Some people called me Chairman. Because my initials on my bag were MAO, so Chairman Mao, and then one person called me Cool Mosinski, because that was my email address was Mosinski, and that felt like a name. So
Yeah.
Well, mine is always like Blozano. Ashlyn. It's Ashlyn B. Lozano, but then it becomes
Ashlyn Bailey
Lozano. Yeah. Or Lozano bitch.
If you're crazy, if you're nasty.
So you could drop that second time, Ashlyn? Okay.
I gotta get to 5. So, next, I guess it's kind of a natural segue.
Mm-hmm.
So talking about sort of either the list of albums that you sent me to listen to, or just like in general, what stands out to you is like your all-timers or your most memorable moments or episodes or albums. Like, what can you talk me through that a little bit? What have you been listening to sort of prepare for this, Michael? You mentioned
Michael,
that.
you want to start?
Yeah.
I mean, dear listeners, full disclosure, we or viewers in this case,
You are viewers. Yeah.
we did give Ashlyn a list. I would say it's not. I wouldn't call them top 5 episodes. I would call them like the 5 like episodes that I remember as being sort of defining moments for the podcast for me. And I tried to exclude ones that were just like my good friends, because those otherwise it would have just been all them.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, I remember early on, aside from like we did the beta episode with Meg about, I'll just say it, about the most recent Fiona Apple album. We had a good conversation about that.
Bolt cutters?
And and that was good. I feel like the moment that I felt like we had something was when we recorded our Purple Rain episode with Ty Verley.
Yeah, it was
because
great.
It was sort of, I remember finishing recording that and thinking, oh, this is exactly what I want the podcast to be all the time. Like, it's a good album and we can talk about the music, but also the person has really, really great stories and is willing to share these little bits of themselves with our listeners. And also is good at banter, like just good at keeping a conversation going, and is ready to, you know, bob and weave wherever we end up going. And I just remember getting, and also that conversation was full of so much joy too. It was just like
very positive.
That was the moment when I really felt like I feel like we have something. It's grown from there, but I mean, I do tend to think that. And I always say this when we reach out to people about recording episodes with us. Sometimes people say, "Oh, I'm not really an expert on music or an expert on this band," and we're like, "That's even better," because I would just rather people have solid personal stories behind the music. Because as far as I'm concerned, that's the real point of this podcast. We're not dissecting the music theory of it. We're not doing music criticism. We're not journalists. This is not a journalistic podcast, and so. When people are willing to just share those stories, I think that's when this really succeeds. What about you, Tyler?
I totally agree on that episode with Ty. That was a barn burner, and it was like also another thing where the selfish aspect of this being like experience fodder, you know, of like having a reason to really sit down, and because Ty was talking about Purple Rain, and an album that like obviously I have a consciousness of, but isn't one that I was super, super intimately familiar with at that point. And so just being able to sit down and say, all right, I'm giving this album a really intentional listen, and I'm going to experience it whatever way I do. But it was just great. It was great to just kind of fall in love with an album in real time. That's been something that I think has been a hallmark of the most memorable. I'm not calling these my top 5. I love all of them. All of them equally.
I'm not going to name them if you don't. So don't. Yeah.
No, this is certainly 5 that I thought about as similar to what Michael was saying. Like, kind of marked a pillar of the experience of doing this so far. So the one that you mentioned was the one with my dad, Paul Esselman, about Wasting Light, the Foo Fighters episode, which is great, which also hasn't aged all that well in some respects, you know.
There's a few.
When you're talking about Dave Grohl, good guy, you mean?
Yeah, good guy Dave Grohl, you know.
I actually do want to talk about that a little bit, maybe later, but.
Yeah, we also do talk about Neil Gaiman on the Tori Amos episode too. I was listening to that one, so there's a lot of
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yep.
Tyler, you were saying.
I've got a hardball for you later about that as well.
Okay, good.
Awesome.
Good. Well,
Not about Neil Gaiman specifically. Go ahead. Sorry.
Fair enough.
Cut that out.
We got that. I think the one with my dad was great because it was like it was the first time I was sitting in the same room as somebody doing it, because my dad and I were sitting in the same room and Michael was coming in remote, obviously, and so like the experience of that I think has been really really interesting, because the experience of doing it in the same room together, it's almost a completely different ballgame, a completely different set of skills that we're using, because we can pick up from each other a whole lot more quickly when you have that proximity. Yet one of the other episodes that I called out was Feels, the episode that we did with Tyler Reif in Canton, New York, when I was up there visiting Michael. Mm-hmm. And that was our first time we had ever done it together with all in the same room. And that is burned into my mind because it was just...
You can hear it.
It was electric, you know.
Yeah.
Like we were just so excited, and Tyler's so smart and so eloquent, and like I was really this isn't a prerequisite to it being a great episode. The person doesn't need to ask amazing questions about the album itself. Like, that's great when it happens, but Tyler was sort of exceptional for that. Tyler Reif, because he came at the question with a really serious critical eye, and it was really fun. It was really fun to get into that discourse with him because he's so good at that critical process. Mm-hmm. I really appreciate that experience.
The scientific method that he applied.
Yeah, he did.
He did. Yeah.
There was data, baby. Yeah.
So when someone brings an album forward, do you do you listen, like, how do you listen to it? What do you, if you're familiar with it, do you re-listen to it? Are you sitting in your room? Do you listen to it all at once? Like, how do you metabolize an album before a guest comes on?
I wish I could say I do it the same way every time, and I wish I could say that every album gets the same number of listens, but we do make it a point to listen to the album in its entirety before doing the episode, and I think we do minimal amounts of research beforehand. But I mean, I will say there are certain episodes that I feel I have felt less prepared for because I haven't had as much time to listen to the album, or if an album doesn't really gel with me, like, I sort of have a choice to make whether am I going to analyze this from a distance, or am I going to try and find a personal connection before we record the episode so that I have something a little more personal to say about it. And like, when I listen back to some old episodes, I can just tell which albums didn't speak to me personally as much. I mean, I wish I could like just do nothing but listen to music all the time and 8 different ways, like in the car or like at the gym or whatnot. But
do you really wish that? Like, you would enjoy that?
I miss listening to music the way that I used to, which is you would buy the CD and you would come home and you would put it in your CD player, and I would lie on my bed, sorry, grammatically correct. And I would like open up the liner notes and I would follow along with the lyrics. I would close my eyes and I would not stop listening until the whole album was done. I don't do that anymore. Rarely do I do that. I will say, like, for the first time in a while, the album that we are nominating, that I will not say yet, I did listen to at the gym in its entirety, and I mean that it probably will not surprise you, Ashlyn, to know that it's a good gym album.
Did you
and
run fast?
And that works. But like sometimes I'll listen to an album and I'll be at the gym and be like, this is wrong. Like, I mean, when we were prepping for the Sarah McLachlan episode, I already knew that album pretty well, but still, like, putting that on in the gym, it's like maybe when I'm doing yoga or something like that.
I'm laughing about Sarah at the gym, not Sarah in general.
Mackers at the gym. Yeah.
Mackers at the gym.
That's right.
I don't know. Tyler, I mean, do you, like, I know you've talked about trying to listen to it lots of different ways, like in headphones.
Tyler exclusively listens to music on his hit clips, right?
Yes, I actually have a vast collection of hit clips, and I've
what, like 30 seconds of
30 seconds, and I've taken to I'm fabricating my own hit clips, my own bespoke hit clips. You can check out my Etsy, because really what I need is another hustle, and I'm gonna put those on my Etsy store, so you can buy 30 seconds.
Should we talk money before you answer? Are you making money off this?
You better believe I'm going to make some money off this.
You made this side hustle off the podcast?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Are you making money off of this podcast?
Like,
no.
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 That's an interesting question. Well, what you were saying to Michael about is, would I want to do that all day? Like, would I want this to
like
be,
listen to music all day?
Yeah, would that be a life that I think especially talking to people who on this podcast, or that we've met kind of tangentially to this, the people who are music journalists, like do write music journalism, and like seeing the way that they shape their lives and how it's kind of like integrated, that whole process of critique and that whole process of applying your critical mind to the music that you're listening to. It's so habitual for them that it is sort of, it's a skill that I haven't really sharpened in the way that some of our friends from this podcast have. And I can just tell, the Evan Saudis of the world, the Sam Lopez's of the world, like those people are like come at it with a remarkable, and maybe it's not the same process every time, but it is a process. And so for me, I think what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to put myself into a place where I can absorb as much of the music as I can in that given state that I'm in at the time. So maybe the week's crazy, and the time that I know that I'm going to be able to actually give this album the time in my ears is when I'm cooking. And so I'll put it in while I'm cooking, and I know that I'm going to be in enough of a flow state with the rest of me that the music will hit fertile ground, and that I will be able to absorb maybe not every single lyric, but I'll be able to absorb kind of the arc of it, if that applies. Sometimes it doesn't. And I'll be able to absorb kind of like what I think works best about the album. And walking into a recording with at least that is pretty helpful, because from there, people sort of guide their own episodes, like you were saying before.
And you just listen. You're both such good listeners. And you pick
I
up
hope
what's
so.
put down. Oh my God, are you kidding me? Relevant to nothing. Tyler is such a good friend. He came to my grandfather's funeral. Did you know this, Michael?
No, I didn't know this.
Yeah, my abuelo died 2 years ago now or something.
It was 2 years ago,
Tyler
yeah.
came to Riverside, California, came to his funeral, slept on a couch next to my mom, who was
I
sleeping
did,
on
yeah. Shout out
a
Jordy.
different couch.
Yeah.
Anyway, cut
love
that
you,
out.
dude.
That's relevant
No,
to
I
nothing.
love
I
you,
love you
dude.
too, dude.
Can
I
I
love
just
you
say?
too.
Can I just say this is like part of this is the I speak about your abuelo's funeral pretty often, because the experience of seeing the mariachi,
There was a lot of music there, yeah.
it was actually like, I'm getting goosebumps kind of just even thinking about it right now, because I had never heard mariachi like that before in my
Yeah.
life, and
I hadn't either.
it was incredible. And just like, this is one of those things. This is one of those things where, like, sometimes I'm not a music journalist, but man, am I thinking about it journalistically now, because I'm like, that is so crazy. It would be so fun to like do it. I'm sure it's out there. I'm sure there's tons of documentary stuff out there about mariachi, but
Yeah.
diving deep on stuff like that, I'm like, ooh, that I would love to do that with Michael.
There is a lack of mariachi on this podcast. Where's the mariachi
significant.
music? Yeah.
Significant. We're working on it. It's in the hopper.
Sorry, thanks for letting me derail for a second.
Hell yeah, dude.
I just had a memory while you were talking about
Yeah. Wouldn't trade that one for the world. That was special.
my love. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've been talking a little bit about like how you metabolize albums, and I'm hearing that you like sometimes you listen closely, sometimes you don't. It depends. You basically let the album come to you, and you come to the table with something to talk about.
Yeah.
Do you have in mind like specific episodes or specific albums that stand out either because they changed the way you thought about it, or I mean, I guess I'll just let you take that really generally. Was there like a watershed album?
I mean, I will say the one that I think was true for both of us is Frank Ocean's Blonde.
Yes.
Was like, I think that might have been the first album that we talked about that Tyler and I both went, whoa,
Yeah.
like when we listened to it, because I remember it sort of didn't strike me right away, but I knew there was something else there. And then that prompted us to listen to the Dissect podcast, where he goes
Yes.
through every single track, like on a music theory and on like, an English class poetry level, and like really picks the whole album apart. And that just uncovered so much that felt like the week we were listening to that and prepping for that episode, that was the first like big discovery album that I had never listened to, and I now listen to, and I will pop it into mixes and whatnot because it was such a huge thing for me anyway.
It's on that level. It definitely is. That episode was an album that I felt like I knew I had consciousness of, but it really didn't. I needed that extra intentional look at it to kind of understand just how good it was, to really be able to feel it. And I think there were also times that what was really revelatory was like how this little, for not to put too fine a point on it, but like how this little community is like maybe kind of starting to grow a little bit, because two of the other albums that really stick out to me are the one we did about Anti, the Rihanna album with friend of the pod, Charlie Peppers, who we just met. We met one.
Great name.
An incredible name, right?
Love the name.
It's such a screenwriter name. And we just met at a festival, like a theater festival in LA. We got to talking, and he was so gracious to come on, and like was so good about like coming to it with such a positive attitude. And then the other one was obviously our buddy Matt Risby from Sheffield. Well, he's living in Sheffield. He's not from Sheffield, but he lives there in the UK. And we just, if you listen to the episode, then you heard the story of how we met. But we met when I was on my bike tour in 2018, just randomly at the cafe that he was working at. And it's just so crazy how the internet can do these things, right? It's really, that's the thing I think I find myself coming back to over and over again. I was like, man, it's this digital existence kind of that we have, but it's one way in which a digital existence feels positive, right? Is because it's based on actual discourse, actual exchange with people. And I'm not saying that to be like, get off my lawn or anything like that. I'm just saying that to be like, it's amazing when it's
Sounds like
smashing
you're saying
in the
get
face.
on my lawn. What do you mean?
Get on. That's exactly
Get
what I'm
on my
saying.
lawn.
That's the log line for this one goes to 11. Get on our
Get on
lawn.
my lawn. Yeah. Do you ever think about things that you've said in the past, and do they haunt you?
You mean in
Like
general?
on the podcast?
Yes.
On the podcast, like, have you ever? Probably not, because you're.
Michael, you want to speak to
I
'Cause
can't,
I
I can't
have.
think of anything. I mean, I do. I will say it's weird that once a week I listen to myself because
Sure.
when the episode comes out, I've made it a habit of listening to it the day it comes out, so that I just make sure that
do
like
it.
everything is in order and it doesn't sound weird. There was one. I remember one time. I think it might have been Derek Loafman's episode where I edited it and uploaded it and went to listen, and the whole second half of the episode somehow had been slowed down by like it was like 0.75, and I'm like
Noticeably.
texting Tyler being like, "Is this noticeable?" He's like, "Yeah, dude, that's noticeable. You got to redo that." And so like I had to like remove the episode and figure out what happened.
Yeah.
So I'm more listening for that. I don't know that I've ever said anything that I wish I could take back at this point, because we edit that out before
Yeah.
we mix it onto,
But
onto
not for
Spotify.
others.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I will say that I'm not going to say like a percentage of the time, but okay, if I were going to give it a percentage, I'd say maybe like 3% of the time there'll be something where I'll say to Michael, I'll be like, hey, can you just like trim that little part out? I don't think I really got my point across, or something like that. Or like it was a thread I dropped and kind of didn't come out the way that I wanted to. So there is an editorial aspect there. I am thinking about that, and this is also probably part of the good reason of having 100 episodes is it's like, okay, at this point I know I've said something stupid. like I just know it has to have happened.
I mean, there's nothing more terrifying than being perceived in general.
I've been saying I've been saying this.
That, I don't know. I haven't. I was just curious. I haven't like heard anything that I have thought you needed to weed out from you.
Because also like
Or
I mean,
anyone.
I know that in my 20s, like I was that like snobby music person who would talk down about other people's musical tastes, and I feel like it's been a conscious effort to like maybe I'm repenting for that or something with this podcast. I mean, we don't with dear listeners will know because now that all 99 episodes have aired, that there's one case where we did shit in someone's cornflakes, but for the most part we don't do that. We're not here to yuck anyone's yum.
Is this
I
what
don't
I'm
like that
thinking
phrase,
of?
but we'll say that. No,
Is
it's
it
not actually. I don't think,
Oh.
Ashlyn, because you don't think you've heard this episode yet.
You haven't heard this episode yet.
Okay, so my next
coming
question
out.
is about the hard sells. Because what I thought you were talking about was Red by Taylor Swift.
No, I mean
No,
this
not
is
that one.
That one made the Pantheon. This is
Yeah.
this is an episode
That
this is an
doesn't?
episode that just came out last week. If you're watching this one in the week that we've just recorded this episode, that is there's something really this
Drama.
is a fun one. It's a fun one. You're gonna have to.
The guesses, Limp Bizkit. Like those are the ones that are coming to mind. So, but I do want to.
I like where your head's at.
Really?
Just everyone will have hopefully already heard this episode, and so you'll find out.
No spoilies.
No spoilers.
Spoilers. Sorry, I'm sorry. That was so cute and terrible.
No
God.
spoilers nor spoilies.
Nary a spoilie will
Nary.
pass my lips. Or a spoiler. So, but back to what I started to say was, other than Third Eye Blind, are there other hard sells that listeners may recall or not recall? Anything that didn't come across like a hard sell but really was internally because you were lying?
Yeah.
I mean, Taylor Swift was a bit of a harder sell, although I think that
I don't remember what standout track you chose for that one. Do you remember?
I don't remember.
I can't remember
think
either.
it might have been a
When you go
really
back.
poppy song from that, but I mean, I think I think our guest maybe felt like it was a hard sell, and I mean, neither one of us is a Swiftie by any means, but I think that I don't know, that was still kind of early in the podcast. I think people didn't quite people didn't quite know what our deal was, and like now I mean, you could pick,
we?
Yeah. I mean, you could pick almost any episode now, though, and just listen to it and be like, oh, these guys are just, like, here to support music and to, like, affirm people's musical tastes, essentially.
Yeah.
So,
I hear you trying. You're trying every album, and whether you're in your listening experience, you feel like you're taking it in deeply or not. It sounds like you are in the way that you can.
Yeah, I would say that there's a few albums that I'm thinking of when we talked about Kendrick Lamar, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. I think we accepted the argument that was coming towards us. I think this was a moment in which it's like, well, how journalistic is what is our journalistic mandate? If we're choosing to be people who choose to be perceived in this way and are having discussions about music online, like what's our mandate in terms of, ethically, I guess is the question. Like how much do you have to put under the microscope with this endeavor that we're doing? And I think we're still figuring that out. But I think generally, if it can come from a place of, if the person's making their case at least from a place of like positive moral intent, saying like, I love this thing, rather than like, I love this thing, kind of in a negative way because it's better than everything else sucks and this thing's great, like that's kind of when I'm always going to accept somebody's argument. If there's like there's a positive element to it or a positive slant to it, which hopefully we set people up for that.
Yeah, I do. And I think another thing that sets people up for that is allowing the guests to get creative with the scale. Or I guess requiring the guests to get creative with the scale. I do think that's like one of the very fun. It brings out a lot of creativity and improv in whoever you're talking to. And it's cool to listen. It's cool to hear how different people take that prompt. And interpret that.
I never get tired of it, or I haven't.
Are there
gotten
any
tired of it yet.
specific points that have stuck with you over the years? Like any?
I do miss points a little bit. I'm glad we're not doing points. You don't. It was just a
Well,
lot.
Why?
It was business. It was business, is what it was.
Well, I miss season 1 points because season 1 points is when you were just making up like the scale on the fly.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
what
it
I'm
would be
talking
like
about.
like 7 walruses and like 18 hoop-de-doos. I don't know what. As opposed to when it just became numbers, it was just sort of like.
Was it like too heavy of a lift? Because I feel like in almost all the ones I've listened to, it's Tyler assigning the points.
Well, it was Tyler's
Was
job.
it always Tyler? Okay.
Yeah, we fell into these jobs pretty quick.
And then you went through the phase where you stopped interrupting to give the points. You would like save them for later.
That was bad. It was bad. It was ill-fated. A lot of stuff fell off.
So
did
I step in something here?
No,
Okay.
not at all.
I think if we had like a producer, if we had like a third person who at the end their segment was they shared like points made along the way, like that would be fascinating to me. But we don't have that kind of money, and also it was just adding time, and I also felt like it was getting in the way of the conversation that was happening. Like I felt bad that Tyler was always the one who did. I mean, like at one point I think we discussed it, and I was sort of like, no, I don't ever want to do that.
And that's fine.
It's so.
I felt like so many times you were repeating back things that the guest had said.
Yeah,
and
that
using
was the spirit
points.
of it for sure.
And
I think
the numbers.
Maybe this is a part of the refinement process that we've gone through, right? Is a little bit of like saying like, what is actually fun about this for people to listen to, and so that's probably like the adjustments that we've made. That it's been with that in mind. Yeah, it's been like kind of not saying brevity is everything, but like getting under an hour per episode was a nice badge of honor for us. Yeah, some of those are long. Some of those are really long.
Sorry.
I don't know which one's the longest at this point now. I'm trying to think if it might be the Brandy Carlisle episode.
That one is long.
It might be the
Damon.
Massive Attack episode. It also might be our first episodes in season 1.
Yeah. The Damon one's great. The Damon one is my mom's favorite. My mom loves.
Really?
Yeah.
Does she love Brandy Carlisle or does she love Damon or both?
I think both. I think it's that's another. Yeah, and this is all. That was a special one because Michael and I both have a relationship with Damon, right? Like it's a shared friendship, and it's like there was something about he really kind of like brought himself to it, like not like we expected.
Of course he
anything
did.
less.
Yeah.
He
and
rules.
Was very prepared.
Very. Yeah, it was great.
Very prepared.
Again, of course he was.
Even though he didn't and this is a great thing, I'll call this out as one of my favorite things, is when people are like, I'm not really a music person, right? Like I'm not really or like when somebody says, I don't really think about music in that way. And I'm always like, oh, okay, cool. But then I'm like, but you do though.
But
don't
yeah, you thought so.
You kind of do. A little bit.
So speaking of that a little bit, so do you have characteristics for like an ideal guest, or what makes a guest good? What makes a guest work?
I have some very specific things to say about that.
Do it. You go
Is it
first. You
brevity?
go first.
Well, it doesn't
Not
need to be
always.
that. Although, I mean, like, number one, they have to have personal stories, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we've had people who come on and are very prepared, and after we're done recording, they're like, I didn't say half the things I wanted to say. And we're like, the time goes fast. Like, you just
Yes.
need to be with us in the moment and be ready to share stories. We honestly don't care if this is better than their 7th album, or like you're going to try and like, you know, talk about like the arc of an album. Like, cool, we can talk about that, but like, I need all of our future guests to learn how to use a period in everyday conversation.
Instead of trailing off, you mean?
Trailing off, but also, I mean, it's like sometimes when I'm editing the episodes, like it's like William Faulkner up in here. I mean, like there are semicolons all over the place. It's like, and not only because we want to be able
Just
to edit
rolling.
things,
Just rolling
but
right
also-
into one thought into the next.
yeah, and that's fine, but like it doesn't invite conversation as much. It makes editing hard. It doesn't invite conversation as much, and it's just, you know, and we're not. This isn't the only podcast where we have had guests who do this. I mean, I listen to other podcasts, and I'll be like, I'll pull up at home, and I'll like park the car, and I'll want to like open the door and shut off the stereo at the end of a sentence. And I'll be waiting there for like a minute being like, oh my God, get to a period. Okay, good. Now I can stop the recording. I just think it's better for communication.
Yeah. So a semicolon. What does a semicolon sound like to you?
Not enough space to
are you
find a
talking
clean
about monologue?
break point.
You're talking about monologue. Okay.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's like I
Monologuing.
mean, I want there to be banter. I want us to have a conversation back and forth. I'm cool with guests asking us questions.
Yeah.
I would rather it be that than one of us or just the guest. I mean, I will defer to the guest saying more than we do because that's why we have the podcast. But, you know, I think like, I mean, that's why a couple of my favorite past episodes were Lucy's episode, and also Ange Bay talked about Dirty Computer, and there was an exchange, and I know both Lucy and Ange had lots of things to say about the album, but they invited
listened.
conversation.
They
They listened and
yeah.
they invited conversation. Yeah,
I thought about that listening to both of those. I also love Dirty Computer. So I have a bias as a listener is that it's hard for me to listen to an episode if I don't know the album and I don't know the guest.
Yeah.
And
This is an understood trend that we figure people will experience is that if it's not somebody you know, and if it's not an album you know, that there's a significant barrier to them listening. And like I think it's structural. Like I don't know, I'm not sure what gets you around that. I'm sure there's all sorts of theory about it. But this is also a thing of like when we do like when there's a little bit of a push of somebody saying like, I very specifically, like these were the standards, these are the creative standards that I was using to measure perfection. That's also fun because, you know, people that shows that there's like an active engagement in the imaginative element of this, if you will. They're saying like, oh, I get to imagine a world, and Ange is very much like that. That was like that was a great part of their episode.
Yeah.
So like the simultaneous creation that happens, those are the ones you remember, I would say.
Were there any other criteria that you want to speak about in an ideal guest?
The curiosity, I think, too. Like I can tell the people that are being put out of their comfort zones on this, and there have been people I've asked to be a guest who I feel like may never be comfortable enough to be perceived in that way. So I guess it's like when I'm not saying this is a requirement, but I do find a special satisfaction in having somebody on who maybe could never have imagined themselves being on a podcast. Like I really like when those people come on.
That's beautiful.
That's fun to me.
Period. I'm curious, has talking to people about albums and how they think of them and how they think of music, where they came from, has that changed the way that you listen to music? Not for the podcast, but just in general. Like, do you listen to new music? Do you listen to old music differently, or is it just the same? What do you think? Like, has this?
I definitely listen to music differently. I think about it differently.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely am enjoying it more. Like it's been pretty positive, I would say, overall, in terms of like how I am appreciating new music. Like I'm trying to, that thing about preventing yourself from aging too much by like novelty, like learning new language or whatever.
Tate McRae.
Yeah, Tate McRae.
Do you know who Tate McRae?
I do know who Tate McRae is.
I'm
novelty
still struggling to figure out.
Okay, is that a Tate McRae thing? This
She's
is
new.
another one. She's great. So novelty, right? Like trying to do something like appreciate music that maybe I wouldn't have appreciated just like on my habitual old self.
Like a new brain scratch.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so like some of the stuff that I'm thinking about our conversation with Joe Rivers about Sophie, the hyperpop kind of thing that is obviously I'm aware of, but being able to like listen to it with intentional ears and challenge myself to try to understand it on an artistic level.
So you're saying you are seeking out new music intentionally because of the I see. Okay.
Yeah, I would say
not
I
just
am.
when it comes to you.
No.
That's cool. That
little bit of
doesn't
both.
surprise me at all. Tyler, from what I know about you. What about you, Michael? What do you think?
It hasn't changed my music habits that much because I have reached that age now where I am not seeking out as much new music.
I was gonna say, doesn't surprise me at all. Knowing you.
I sort of see it as, I would say it's probably harder for an album that someone brings to us to like become part of my regular listening. I can probably count on maybe two hands new albums that we've discovered that I still listen to now from this podcast, but I don't listen to it that differently aside from the fact that I am also listening and thinking of like 3 or 4 points to make them might prompt a question that isn't part of the questions we already give our guests. And for some albums that's harder than others, but I don't think I'm listening to it that differently.
But if it's not for the podcast, like if you're listening.
Oh, if it's not for the podcast, I don't know. It depends on whether I'm listening to music with the purpose of just being at the gym and having something to work out to, or like something just and in the car when driving on a long trip, or it's still the way it's always been. Like there are certain bits of music that are more suitable for some things than others, and so I don't think I've actually changed the way I listen to music that much. So
because it works.
Yes, because I'm very old and I'm super wise as a result of all that.
No.
I
So
know
wise.
everything.
You're at home. Well, wise, yes. Sorry, I didn't mean
Big
to
time
say
wise.
no to that. You are at home with yourself, and you have a long relationship with music. That's a joke. And you know what you need from it, and what it needs from you. I think it might be time to move into the game segment
Of the
episode.
Game.
we
So
have a game, people.
I've heard that you've got some paddles with your faces on them. What? First of all, are these headshots? What is this? I've seen Michael's photo. I don't know if I've seen that photo of you. Was that your first headshot?
No,
I don't
this is
think-
just recent.
Yeah, I don't think it's made any of our things. It's from Jess Maynard did our photo shoot.
These are recent photos of both of you?
From the summer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Michael.
Do you recognize this Andersonville brick wall? Because there's
Do
not
you?
very, very many of them in Andersonville.
I don't.
You'd never.
I know.
If it would have been a snake, it would have bit you.
It's not one of those like brown orangey bricks. That's like a deep red brick. So
a deep red brick.
That does narrow it down slightly.
Yeah. Jess Maynard takes great pictures. Everybody, you should definitely get some pictures taken by her. Look how
Shout
pretty
out to
we
Jess
look.
Maynard. Okay, so do you want to describe what the Newlywed Game is, or do you want me to do it?
It's the thing they do on, we're like now we are officially podcasters because we have a segment where someone asks us question, which one of us would do this? And then we like each hold up a paddle showing which one of the two of us that question best represents. So
Yeah.
I guess it sort of has some origins in the old Newlywed Game,
Yeah.
but we just thought it would be fun and we wanted to make paddles. So
For my work husband. My work husband and I, we've known each other so long. now.
Newlywed. Yeah.
Newlywed. Yeah, it feels like it's been forever.
Come on. All right. So are we ready to
Ashlyn came up
get?
with these questions. People.
Yeah, we don't know what these questions are, dear listeners. So like this is all off the cuff.
I
here.
might have kept one of your suggestions, but I tried to
Okay.
really. I didn't want you to know them, and I tried to keep them at least like generally where you wanted to go. Okay,
Great.
ready?
Okay.
Love it.
All right. We're ready.
All right, DJ Lozano, bitch. Okay, I'll stop saying it now. That's the last one.
No, you not till you hit 5. I know you're going to try to go for 5.
That was 3. You're
That
already
is
on
an
your way.
That is the Easter egg for the album.
It's kind of out there. in the
Isn't
open.
it? Do you
we all
get
knew
it?
though.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. All right.
All right, I'm ready.
First question. Which one of you is more likely to purchase and wear a band artist t-shirt? Band/artist t-shirt.
I don't.
Oh, this is supposed to be a softball. Come on.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like we're
Okay,
both.
pointing
It's you?
fingers here.
You think it's me? I think it's you.
I don't know. I feel like we're
What's
both.
on your?
we're
What
both-
shirt are you wearing right now?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm
a
so
great
glad
shirt.
you asked, Ashlyn. Hold on a
Capsicum?
second. This is worth
Capitalism.
me standing up and recording.
Capitalism
Oh,
is a
it-
death cult.
We should have
with some
started
woodland
with that.
creatures.
What is?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's a little fun thing to uncover later on in the
Oh,
episode.
I love
We
it.
might be cat's game on this one. I think we're.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it depends. Like I don't know.
pointing
I buy
fingers.
merch every once in a while, but like
And I'll say it's a more consistent part of your wardrobe right now is a band T-shirt.
that
What
is
you're
true.
wearing?
Okay,
Is that a
makes
comfy
sense.
thing? Is that like a work from home comfy thing? Do you work from home?
No, I'm not working from
you're
home,
teaching.
though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just a good look on him. He's got
Yeah,
that
sure.
bill. He's got that T-shirt bill. He's got.
Do you hope
cut,
someone's gonna
you know?
ask you a question about it? Be like,
I like wearing my Radiohead one because it says don't tell me what kind of date I have.
Yeah, I love that. Excellent.
So I
So
want
good.
someone to ask me about that one, but
all right, so we're
okay.
0 for 0 there, I guess.
for 0.
Yeah, whatever.
I like that one though. That was a good one.
Oh, I did keep this one because it's funny. Which one of you is more likely to attend a Toby Keith concert?
It's got to be me, probably.
Really?
Right?
And
yeah.
follow up, why Toby Keith? Michael, did you write this question?
I wrote that question.
Yeah, of course. And why? Why Toby
First of all,
Keith?
he's dead. Second of all,
He is?
yeah,
When did he die?
he died a couple years ago.
He did? Did he?
I think it was
did?
cancer or something like that. But the
Sorry,
thing
dude.
is
Rest
that
in peace, Toby Keith.
I am much
God.
more likely to be in a situation where I get roped into going to a Toby Keith concert. 100%.
Yeah.
That's my family. That's my locales that I find
Got it.
myself in.
Got it.
You know, my first concert, as we might remember, if keen listeners might remember. That
Was
my first
Keen?
it was, I wish
Oh,
Keen would have been great. No, my first concert ever was Brad Paisley, and
Wow.
opened for by one Miss Taylor Swift.
Wow.
Yeah, she was the first opener. Kelly Pickler of American Idol fame was
Yeah,
the second
yep.
opener, followed by
Remember.
Mr. Brad Paisley.
I've been to the Chicks. They
Yes.
were not the Chicks at the time, but my mom took me to the Chicks.
Love the Chicks.
Loved it. Still
Yeah.
love them.
Chicks are great.
Yeah, they're great. Okay. Interesting. Now, peeling behind the curtain a little bit, which one of you is more likely to comment on how it went after recording? Is it you?
Gotta be me.
Okay, why?
It's gotta be me.
Why?
I get a little bit like, that was fun.
Yeah.
Do you mean it?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean it every time, but that's the thing though, is that it's very much, it's exactly what you'd think it is. Like whoever we're on with logs off, you know, maybe it's late wherever we are, and maybe we're just like tired, and then I'm pretty sure every time I go, well, that was fun.
Yeah.
Am I wrong, Michael? Am
No,
I
you're
wrong?
not wrong.
Golden
You're not
rod
wrong.
friend
You're
over
not
here.
wrong.
All right, hardball number one. Which
Okay.
one of you is clearer on how and when to separate the art from the artist? For example, Michael Jackson, Diddy, Neil Gaiman, I guess. if
Which
we're
of
not-
us is more clear about that?
Yeah, I would say
I guess I think it's
which
gotta be
which
you,
one of you
probably.
wrestles with it less, I guess.
Yeah, I think you have
Probably me.
I think you have some very not to say that you're like inflexible or in your like ethics or your values or anything like that, but I do think you have a strong moral code, Michael, and you have a
Do you
strong.
have rules about it, or do you have like what's your?
I don't think it's that. I think it's just a matter of like, I mean, yeah, I hope that I have some, morals, but also like a sense of nuance. Because I think that so often, I'm not going to get really controversial here and start talking about cancel culture or whatever, but I do often feel like conversations get shut down by an inability for people to examine the nuance in something. And I think that, it is, and again, we haven't talked about Michael Jackson on the podcast yet in detail, but I mean, a fantastic musical artist. And if we focus on that and acknowledge the fact that, like, yeah, he probably did some not so cool things, like, it can...
That's one way to put it.
I mean, well, but, like, I mean, I don't know. I just think that kind of the conceit of the podcast is also, like, what has music done for you in your life and what sort of a relationship have you attached to it? Mm-hmm. And if for some reason people, like, have really loved Michael Jackson and have managed to steer clear of news in its entirety, like, just all news, like, they're going to have a different relationship, and you don't want to be the person to be like, well, we can't listen to that anymore. Like, it's, I think that's why maybe I feel like I have a good sense of it. I mean, I'm ready to talk about maybe not R. Kelly, but I feel like something feels different about the R. Kelly situation. I can't put my finger on what it is, but
or like Diddy.
Diddy too. Diddy like this kind of kind of thing. I think what we're part of it is like, do we expect anybody to nominate a Diddy album as perfect? Probably not.
Or R. Kelly?
Or R. Kelly. Like Ignition. Ignition is a song that I think it's sad. It's sad at how positive all of my feeling is around that song, because it was so indicative of a time and place in our lives, but it's not like the legacy is there with Michael Jackson, right? With Michael Jackson, it was the king of pop. Like those are the stakes we're talking about. So I figure when we have these conversations, it's because we'll have to. Right, it's because you'll say there's a real case that Thriller is a perfect album, and it means that much to me. And so somebody coming in and saying, hey, this is a legacy I have to struggle with every time I listen to this album that has meant the world to me, I'm interested in hearing that story. Mm-hmm. And like, as long as they're not walking and saying you did nothing wrong, then then we're good. Like, we can embracing the nuance there. And I think I look to you, Michael. You're somebody who I admire. Your ability to navigate those kind of questions, and honestly, it's why I think it's a strength of yours. So I feel good saying that's Michael.
Michael
comes from being a teacher too. I think
that's
true.
Yeah, sure.
An educator.
But have you heard the rule? Eric says this is kind of a joke, but it's like if you heard the thing, the creative thing, before you heard about the bad thing, then it's okay.
Yeah.
But anything new that the artist has produced.
Yeah. I mean, this is the rules, right? Everyone's going to have their own individual set of rules.
Yeah, that's not.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like Roman Polanski.
It's all contextual. It's all contextual, saying like this person, that this is the imperatives that we're getting from the internet hive mind too, right?
Yeah.
Like it's the cutting through what those might mean, and like kind of reconnecting with the base level thing of like, well, why does this mean so much to me? It's not. Other podcasts do that very well, but it's a fun opportunity I like to provide for the people that we talk to. Because there have been a few that didn't know about it before, and then through getting ready for the album, they're like, oh shit, there's this whole context that now I need to take into account.
Yeah, I'm kind of coming at Steven Tyler now differently, and things like that. But
the more it's all out there now, it's all ours to wrestle with as people who want to enjoy music.
So back behind the curtain, which one of you has brought forth more guests?
That's a good question. Oh, you think it was me?
Another.
That might be you.
It might be
tit for tat.
It might be even, like, if we really went through into the number, it might be pretty even, I think.
Pretty even. Maybe slightly weighted towards you, though, because...
Are some of them shared? Like, I feel like...
Well, some are
some of them were shared.
Anyone who comes from, like, TTS, it would be considered shared, I think.
Yeah, you're shared. And so like, all of our TTS contacts feel like those are shared people. And then a lot of it's been, like, in these early years, just straight up people we know. And then now, slowly, we're starting to talk to people we don't actually know. So this pool is diversifying and
crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty
crazy
fun.
Cool. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Which one of you is most likely to start a second podcast about something else?
Where's my head?
Okay, and follow up. What is it about
Well, I guess you're
got,
just
like-
making reference to the fact that I'm always making a joke about how that'll be on our theater podcast or that'll be
Not
on our
just the
politics
theater
podcast.
pod. There's like other. You've created others too. Like when we have our film podcast and we have our like a Brene Brown podcast. Like I mean,
Yeah.
I think like there are just so
Yeah.
many things
With Brene Brown or just
our
about
Tone Scale
Brene Brown?
podcast.
yeah, a Scientology podcast.
They're very litigious. Be careful. Unless you are now Scientologists.
No, we're
Are you?
good. I'm good on that.
Speak
I'm
for
good.
yourself, Tyler.
Which one of you is the mother of Dave Grohl's secret love child?
Oh, that's me.
It's
Yeah,
Tyler.
definitely me.
Great.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that for a
Do
second.
we want to talk about it? Okay.
Yeah, let's. So it relates to this. Like I don't even know if anybody says cancel culture anymore, right? But like it's just a funny thing of like us when we found out that Mr. Dave Grohl had a love child out of wedlock. It's
Wedlock. Wow.
out of wedlock.
Tipper Gore over here.
Yeah, just slap that parental advisory label right here, right there on my forehead.
God.
When we heard about this, it's just goes to show you, right? Ain't nobody as pure as we think they are, right? Like it's all just this illusion that we have, and that there's people fuck up all the time, and this was I think a little reminder of like. They're not your heroes. Your heroes are the people that you interact with and have a material effect on your life every day.
Also, someone fucking up in their own marriage is different from someone being like a predator.
Yeah,
Which maybe he is that too, but I don't.
we don't know.
I don't.
We don't know.
I hope not.
I hope not too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, sort of cancel culture tends to can run the risk of treating all those things equally, and it's not
Yeah.
equal.
Absolutely.
So. But I just
So-
wanted to stir the pot.
Yeah. God love him. It's one of those things. It's dad rock, and I guess he couldn't stop dad.
Seriously, I know your episode with your dad. You're talking all about him as a parent and him. Yeah, it's kind of like the John Mulaney effect, where
A little bit.
people don't like him anymore because he.
Yeah.
I mean, I do. I don't. Yeah.
It's funny, right? We know so much. We know so much about
Yeah.
or presumably know so much, and it's all just noise, right? It's all end of the day.
And that is really none of my business. Like, whatever.
It's extra none of my business.
Whatever. Which of you has a bigger complex about Taylor Swift? Yeah,
Do you
I knew
think
that.
you do? Yeah. Okay.
Why'd you ask the question then, Ashlyn? If you already
Because
knew the
I
answer
wanted you
to
to
it.
say it.
I don't know.
Okay.
Well, let's talking to
it's-
maybe it's you. What say more
think
to it,
it's
Michael?
you.
What do you
Yeah.
where do you land on it now? I guess
I'm not gonna say too much. I'm just gonna say that like it's not for me,
Yeah.
and it just doesn't speak to me. And her music isn't gendered,
not her.
Ashlyn.
It's not for me.
God. The music's just not for me. And as I talked about when I did my Back to One episode on Rufus Wainwright, within that I mentioned that like when people say, "Oh, but you just need to listen to this," and like, "Oh, but you have to listen to this because actually she is for everybody," that makes me go like, okay, well now I am less likely to listen to it because, like. Who knows? Maybe in the future, maybe like this grunge album that Mariah Carey is supposed to have sitting around somewhere. Like maybe Taylor Swift has maybe she'll have some sort of project coming up in the
What?
future. I also
real thing.
suspect. I also think Beyonce, she used to have 3 parts, right? So she had Renaissance, she had Cowboy Carter, and there's a 3rd part. Like my husband
assuming.
and I think that it might be like if we're thinking of a genre she hasn't covered yet, she can do a hard rock album. It
That
could
would
be
be
like
fucking
Beyonce
cool.
doing a hard rock
She
album.
kind of nodded to
That'd be
that
sick.
sometimes in Lemonade,
Yeah.
didn't she?
Yeah,
she
I
did.
mean that song
Jack
with
White.
Jack White that she
Yeah.
does. Yeah,
Yeah.
like,
Yes.
Yeah.
Was that Lemonade? Or
That was limited.
yeah, Lemonade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
great.
I think that in the course of this pod, I have obviously there's a lot of music that people bring on here that we specifically love ourselves, and I think like Michael said, there's been some that we just don't feel as connected to. Hopefully, we've been equal opportunity in terms of obviously biases being what they are. Like hopefully we've been reasonably equal opportunity about it. I think to me it's like I bring it back to something your fiance said, Ashlyn, that I think about all the time, which is about lyrics and music, is that that sometimes you don't get to them right away, and sometimes but they'll be, I think it's like, I'm going to paraphrase him yet again, paraphrase of a paraphrase. But he said, essentially, they're waiting there for you when you're ready for them, right?
Ugh.
And that's a very smart thing that
God love him.
I know, God love Eric Richardson. We love that guy. But he said that to me, and I was like, yeah, that's true. There's this urgency sometimes to say, I get that or I don't. Or like, I like that or I don't, or to like that binary that I feel like is unhelpful a lot of the time, that I certainly hope to deconstruct in the process of what we do, is like, it hasn't reached me yet. That music, Taylor Swift's music, hasn't reached me yet, and it very well might at some point. Maybe I just need something in the structure of my relationships will need to shift, and then I'll really connect with it. Who knows? Maybe it won't. But I feel this about other artists too. Like, honestly, we invoked Jack White a second ago. I've always found Jack White's music a little opaque. Like that to me is like, I understand why he's so virtuosic, but he hasn't reached me on an emotional level in some ways. And so I think it's similar to how I am with Taylor. Probably.
I think Eric would say the problem with Taylor Swift is Jack Antonoff, because he hates Jack Antonoff, and Jack Antonoff is everywhere.
Interesting.
Fighting words.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
But that's
I
solid
don't know
take,
if
right?
he would say that. I just know that he doesn't like Jack Antonoff, and he produces
Everything.
Yeah, he's hard. He's like very dug
working
in,
all the time.
very dug in, all over the place.
All pop, all everywhere. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Okay, so we're getting away. Sorry. I've got 3 more questions.
Great.
No, I have 2 more questions. They're kind of the same question. Oh,
right.
God, Ashlyn.
We'll try one of them.
Number 1, which one of you is more likely to tune out with a guest? Really?
You think that's you? I don't know, man. I don't want to say that. You think it's you?
No, it's me, because I, like, without going into too much, I feel like while I've been where I am right now...
I feel like I've seen you tune out in this conversation a little bit, actually.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm just bored by the host. But anyway, I just
I'm sure you are.
Without getting too personal, I mean, like, when we started the podcast, like, this was a salve in the middle of, a crazy pandemic, and it just felt, and it was like new and exciting.
When was
and
that?
Whatnot.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Sorry, throwback. Sorry.
But like, as I've been sort of like, I've got some like career stuff going on now that I'm trying to figure out, and so it's like I'm not as present as I was when we first started the whole thing. So like, there are episodes where I have to force myself to like, just not because what the person's saying isn't intriguing. It's just because like the voices in my head are often loud, and sometimes they take over.
You're burned out, probably.
Yeah.
Oh, so Tyler, did you have something before
I would say that it's hard to, there's probably an element of both of us being perfectionists in some way that feel like there is a level at which we want to feel engaged to every single moment that we have recorded. But I think it's probably another little thing that we just need to accept, is that sometimes we won't be as fully engaged as we possibly could be. It's certainly something I need to try to just understand. And like that's where the whole, what is this project in the scope of the other work that we do, like the work that we actually do for our livelihood and stuff like that, that's another, it factors into that question, right? So that's high level. Yeah.
Well, the follow-up there is then, like, if conversation lags, who is the fluffer?
I suppose I am the fluffer.
And with that, we
fluffer,
end
I
the
hardly know
newlywed
her.
Game. That ends the newlywed game.
That feels like maybe a good place to end part 1 of this 100th episode. Don't you think, Tyler?
I think so. Yes. We're got part 2 coming up for you. Wait, how's this going to work? They're just both going to be out there, right, Michael? That's the idea.
I think you're editing it. Give yourself an extra week. Like, I think this will come out
Wicked
the next
movie,
week.
which I just watched last night for the first time. They're giving it a year.
That's true. They're giving it a year. So if Wicked,
that intermission is a year.
That's a good long intermission. You can get a lot done.
If you come back next week for part 2, y'all, Ashlyn's got more questions for us.
She does.
Sorry.
Tyler and I have an album to add to the pantheon, perhaps.
I can't wait to talk about this album.
And
I'm so excited.
we're also going to hear from some of our past guests who offered us some congratulatory messages.
Yeah.
So, I mean, why wouldn't you tune into part 2, dear listeners?
See you then. Bye.
Bye.